Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Prehistoric France Paleolithic Era. The Paleolithic Era, or Old Stone Age, was the earliest period of human history, during which early humans lived in France as hunter-gatherers. The region was inhabited by Neanderthals approximately 250,000 years ago. They used basic tools made of stone and lived in caves for shelter. Archaeological evidence shows that they buried their dead, indicating the presence of spiritual or ritualistic practices. Around 40,000 years ago, Homo sapiens, or modern humans, arrived in France, bringing advanced tools, art, and social structures. One of the most famous sites from this era is the Lascaux caves in southwestern France, which were discovered in 1940. These caves contain over 600 paintings of animals such as horses, stags, and bison, created approximately 17,000 years ago. The paintings were made using natural pigments and showcase early humans' artistic and cultural development. The purpose of the cave paintings remains debated, with theories ranging from religious rituals to storytelling or symbolic expressions of their environment. Neolithic Revolution. The Neolithic era marked a major turning point in human history as societies transitioned from a nomadic lifestyle of hunting and gathering to settled farming communities. This shift began around 5000 BC in what is now France. Early farmers domesticated animals such as cattle, sheep, and goats, and cultivated crops like wheat and barley. Permanent villages were established, and people began constructing homes using wood, clay, and stone. The introduction of pottery allowed for the storage of food and water. This period also saw the construction of megalithic structures, such as dolmens and menhirs, particularly in the Brittany region. These monuments are believed to have had religious or ceremonial purposes, reflecting the growing complexity of human society. The Neolithic Revolution laid the foundation for the development of civilization in France. Ancient France, Gaul, Celtic Gaul, before Roman conquest, France was known as Gaul and was inhabited by Celtic tribes known as the Gauls. These tribes were skilled farmers, warriors, and craftsmen who lived in fortified settlements. They were organized into clans and ruled by chieftains. The Gauls practiced a polytheistic religion led by druids, who served as priests and educators. They traded extensively with neighboring regions, exchanging goods such as metals, pottery, and textiles. Key cities like Massalia, modern-day Marseille, were founded by Greek traders and became important trade hubs. Roman Gaulan 58 BC, Julius Caesar began his military campaign to conquer Gaul during the Gallic Wars. The defeat of the Gallic chieftain Vercingetorix at the Battle of Alesia in 52 BC marked the end of Gallic resistance. Gaul was fully integrated into the Roman Empire and became a prosperous province. The Romans introduced urban planning, aqueducts, roads, and Latin language, which significantly influenced French culture. Key cities like Lutetia, modern-day Paris, and Massalia became centers of trade and governance. Roman Gaul experienced economic growth and cultural assimilation until the decline of the Roman Empire in the 5th century. Fall of the Roman Empire. The collapse of the Roman Empire in 476 AD was marked by invasions from Germanic tribes, including the Franks, who settled in northern Gaul. These invasions led to political fragmentation and the decline of Roman influence. The Franks eventually established dominance, laying the foundation for the medieval kingdoms of France. The Merovingian and Carolingian Dynasties. The Merovingian dynasty, founded by Clovis I in the 5th century, marked the beginning of the Frankish Kingdom. Clovis united the Frankish tribes under one rule and converted to Christianity, which strengthened his alliance with the Catholic Church. This conversion played a crucial role in spreading Christianity throughout France. The Merovingian kings ruled over a fragmented kingdom, with local lords holding significant power. Despite their authority, their reign was often marked by internal conflict and power struggles. The Carolingian dynasty rose to power in the 8th century under Charles Martel, who defeated the Islamic forces at the Battle of Tours in 732. His grandson Charlemagne became the most significant figure of this era. Charlemagne expanded the Frankish Kingdom into an empire that covered much of Western Europe and was crowned Emperor of the Romans in 800 by Pope Leo III. His reign ushered in the Carolingian Renaissance, a period of cultural and intellectual revival. Charlemagne established schools, standardized Latin writing, and promoted the spread of Christianity. After his death, his empire was divided among his grandsons, leading to the eventual fragmentation of the Frankish Kingdom. Feudal France Capetian dynasty in 987, Hugh Capet became the first king of the Capetian dynasty, which ruled France for over 3 centuries. The Capetians gradually expanded their authority by centralizing power and asserting control over feudal lords. The monarchy's influence grew as they established Paris as the political and cultural center of France. This period saw the development of feudalism, a hierarchical system in which kings granted land to nobles in exchange for military service, and peasants worked the land in return for protection. The 100 Years' War. The 100 Years' War was a series of conflicts between France and England from 1337 to 1453. The war was caused by territorial disputes and claims to the French throne. Key events include the Battle of Agincourt in 1415 and the rise of Joan of Arc, a peasant girl who claimed to have received divine visions. She played a pivotal role in lifting the siege of Orleans and restoring French morale. The war ended with France reclaiming most of its territory and solidifying its national identity. The Renaissance cultural and intellectual rebirth. The Renaissance marked a period of cultural, artistic, and scientific revival in France during the 15th and 16th centuries. Inspired by the Italian Renaissance, French artists and thinkers embraced humanism, focusing on the potential and achievements of individuals. The printing press, introduced in the late 15th century, allowed for the spread of ideas and literature. Wars of religion. The wars of religion between Catholics and Huguenots, Protestants, ravaged France from 1562 to 1598. These conflicts were fueled by religious differences and political ambitions. The St. Bartholomew's Day massacre in 1572, during which thousands of Huguenots were killed, marked one of the bloodiest episodes of the wars. The conflicts ended with the Edict of Nantes in 1598, issued by King Henry IV, granting religious tolerance to Protestants and restoring peace. The absolute monarchy, 17th-18th century, Louis XIV, 1643-1715. The Sun King Louis XIV, known as the Sun King, is one of the most famous absolute monarchs in history. Ascending the throne at the age of 4, he eventually took full control of the government in 1661 after the death of his chief minister, Cardinal Mazarin. Louis XIV centralized power in the monarchy, famously stating, "L'État, c'est moi," I am the state. Centralization of power. Louis reduced the influence of the nobility by forcing many nobles to live at the Palace of Versailles, where he could monitor them closely. He also expanded the administrative structure of France, relying on loyal bureaucrats to enforce his policies across the kingdom. Palace of Versailles. Louis XIV transformed a modest hunting lodge into the Grand Palace of Versailles, a symbol of absolute monarchy and royal opulence. The palace became the center of French political and cultural life, and a showcase of Baroque art and architecture. Military and expansion. Louis XIV led France through several wars, including the War of the Spanish Succession, aiming to expand French territory and influence. However, his military campaigns drained the treasury and placed a heavy burden on the people. Religious policy. Louis XIV revoked the Edict of Nantes in 1685, leading to the persecution of Protestants, Huguenots, and forcing many to flee France, which weakened the economy. Louis XV, 1715 to 1774, and Louis XVI, 1774 to 1792. Decline of absolute monarchy. Louis XV, the great-grandson of Louis XIV, inherited the throne at a young age. His reign was marked by increasing financial difficulties and loss of public confidence. Financial crises. Wars like the 7 Years' War, 1756-1763, left France heavily indebted. Louis XV's inability to reform the tax system exacerbated the economic crisis. Weak leadership. Louis XV was criticized for his lavish lifestyle and reliance on unpopular advisors, further alienating him from the people. Louis XVI, his grandson, inherited a kingdom in turmoil. Despite attempts at reform, his indecision and inability to address France's growing economic and social problems led to widespread unrest. Economic hardships. The government faced massive debt, partly due to its support for the American Revolution, 1775-1783, and an outdated tax system that placed the burden on the lower classes. Social inequality. The division of society into three estates, the clergy, nobility, and commoners, created resentment among the third estate, which carried the tax burden but lacked political power. Build-up to revolution. By the late 18th century, the monarchy's extravagance, coupled with Enlightenment ideas advocating liberty and equality, fueled revolutionary sentiments. The French Revolution, 1789 to 1799, causes of the revolution, economic hardships. Widespread famine, rising bread prices, and crushing taxes created despair among the common people. Enlightenment ideas. Thinkers like Voltaire, Rousseau, and Montesquieu promoted ideas of individual rights, equality, and government accountability. Social inequality. The rigid class system and privileges of the nobility and clergy alienated the third estate, which demanded representation and reform. Key events. The storming of the Bastille, July 14, 1789. This event, symbolizing the collapse of royal authority, marked the beginning of the revolution. The Bastille, a fortress and prison, was stormed by revolutionaries seeking weapons. The Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, August 1789. Inspired by Enlightenment ideals, this document proclaimed equality, liberty, and fraternity as fundamental rights. Abolition of the monarchy. In 1792, the monarchy was abolished, and France was declared a republic. King Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette were executed by guillotine in 1793, Reign of Terror, 1793-1794. Led by Robespierre, the revolutionary government executed thousands of perceived enemies of the revolution. This period of radicalism ended with Robespierre's execution. Rise of the Directory, 1795 to 1799. A moderate government replaced the radical phase, but it was plagued by corruption and instability, paving the way for Napoleon Bonaparte's rise to power. Napoleon Bonaparte and the Napoleonic Wars, 1799-1815. Rise of Napoleon. Napoleon Bonaparte, a military general from Corsica, seized power in 1799 through a coup d'état, ending the French Revolution and establishing himself as first consul. In 1804, he crowned himself Emperor of France, symbolizing the transition from revolutionary ideals to centralized authority. Napoleon's reforms Napoleonic Code. This legal code standardized laws across France, emphasizing equality before the eyes, law, property rights, and secular governance. Modernization of the state. Napoleon reformed education, created a centralized administration, and established the Bank of France to stabilize the economy. The Napoleonic Wars. Napoleon's ambitions led to a series of wars across Europe as he sought to expand French influence. Major battles. Victories at Austerlitz, 1805, and Jena, 1806, established Napoleon as a dominant figure, but his invasion of Russia in 1812 ended in disaster. Formation of coalitions. European powers formed coalitions to resist French expansion, culminating in Napoleon's defeat. Exile and final defeat. 1814. Napoleon was exiled to Elba after his defeat by the Sixth Coalition. He escaped in 1815 and briefly regained power during the 100 Days. However, his defeat at the Battle of Waterloo led to his final exile to St. Helena, where he died in 1821. The Restoration and July Monarchy, 1815-1848, Bourbon Restoration after Napoleon's defeat. The monarchy was restored under Louis XVIII, the brother of Louis XVIII. The Bourbon Restoration attempted to balance royal authority with constitutional governance. Louis XVIII, 1815-1824, ruled as a constitutional monarch, maintaining some revolutionary reforms while restoring traditional royal privileges. Charles X, 1824-1830. His conservative policies and attempts to strengthen royal power led to widespread unrest. The July Revolution, 1830, Charles X's unpopular rule ended with the July Revolution, a 3-day uprising in Paris. He was overthrown, and Louis Philippe became king, ushering in the July Monarchy. July Monarchy, 1830-1848. Louis Philippe, known as the Citizen King, promoted liberal policies and industrial growth. However, his government became increasingly authoritarian, leading to dissatisfaction among workers and the middle class. The Second Republic and the Second Empire, 1848-1870, French Revolution of 1848. Economic hardship and demands for political reform led to the Revolution of 1848, which ended the July Monarchy and established the Second Republic. Universal male suffrage was introduced, and slavery was abolished in French colonies. Louis Napoleon Bonaparte, Napoleon III. Louis Napoleon Bonaparte, nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte, was elected president in 1848. In 1852, he declared himself emperor, establishing the Second Empire. Industrialization. Napoleon III modernized France's infrastructure, including railways and urban development in Paris. Franco-Prussian War, 1870. His reign ended with defeat in the Franco-Prussian War, leading to his capture and the collapse of the Second Empire. The Third Republic, 1870-1940, Franco-Prussian War, 1870-1871. The Franco-Prussian War began in 1870 after tensions between France under Napoleon III and Prussia, led by Otto von Bismarck. France suffered a devastating defeat, culminating in Napoleon III's capture at the Battle of Sedan. The war led to the fall of the Second Empire and the proclamation of the Third Republic in 1870. The Siege of Paris, 1870-1871, during which the city was bombarded by Prussian forces. The Treaty of Frankfurt, 1871, which resulted in France losing the territories of Alsace and Lorraine to Germany. This loss fueled resentment and contributed to future conflicts. The Paris Commune, 1871. After the Franco-Prussian War, radical socialists and workers briefly took control of Paris, forming the Paris Commune. This revolutionary government sought to establish a more egalitarian society. However, it was violently suppressed by the French army, leaving deep political and social scars. World War I, 1914-1918. France played a central role in World War I as part of the Allied powers. The Western Front. Much of the fighting occurred on French soil, including major battles like the Battle of Verdun and the Battle of the Somme. The war caused massive destruction and loss of life, with over 1.4 million French soldiers killed. Victory and aftermath. France emerged victorious in 1918, but at a tremendous cost. The Treaty of Versailles in 1919 imposed harsh penalties on Germany, including reparations, and returned Alsace-Lorraine to France. However, the economic and psychological toll of the war left France weakened. Interwar period, 1919-1939. The interwar years were marked by economic instability, political fragmentation, and the rise of extremism. Economic challenges. The Great Depression of the 1930s caused widespread unemployment and poverty. Political tension. France experienced frequent changes in government, with rising support for far-right and far-left ideologies. Rise of fascism. The threat of fascism loomed as Adolf Hitler consolidated power in Germany, creating tensions that would lead to World War II. 12. World War II, 1939-1945, invasion and occupation. In 1940, Nazi Germany invaded France, defeating its forces in a matter of weeks. Paris fell on June 14, 1940. The northern part of France was occupied by Germany, while the southern region was governed by the Vichy regime, a puppet government that collaborated with the Nazis under Marshal Philippe Pétain. The French Resistance. The French Resistance, a network of underground fighters, worked to undermine German occupation through sabotage, espionage, and spreading anti-Nazi propaganda. Charles de Gaulle, who fled to London, became the leader of the Free French forces, rallying resistance both within France and abroad. Liberation of France. The Allied invasion of Normandy on D-Day, June 6, 1944, marked a turning point in the war. After fierce battles, Paris was liberated on August 25, 1944. By 1945, France was free from German occupation and emerged as one of the victorious Allied powers. 13. The Fourth Republic, 1946 to 1958, post-war reconstruction. After World War II, France faced the immense task of rebuilding its economy and society. Economic recovery. France received aid through the Marshall Plan, which helped modernize industry and infrastructure. Social reforms. The government introduced social security systems and expanded workers' rights. Algerian War of Independence. 1954–1962. The Fourth Republic struggled to maintain its colonial empire, particularly in Algeria, where a brutal war for independence broke out. The war was marked by guerrilla warfare, widespread violence, and atrocities committed by both French forces and Algerian nationalists. The war deeply divided French society, contributing to political instability and the eventual collapse of the Fourth Republic. 14. The Fifth Republic, 1958–present. Charles de Gaulle and the formation of the Fifth Republic. In 1958, Charles de Gaulle returned to power amid political and social turmoil. He drafted a new constitution that created a stronger executive branch, establishing the Fifth Republic. Algerian independence. De Gaulle negotiated Algeria's independence, which was formalized in 1962 with the Evian Accords. Cold War leadership. De Gaulle pursued an independent foreign policy, withdrawing France from NATO's integrated command and developing France's nuclear arsenal. May 1968 protests. In 1968, a wave of student-led protests and strikes swept across France, challenging social norms and calling for reforms in education, labor, and governance. The unrest paralyzed the country, but ultimately led to some reforms, including increased wages and improved working conditions. Modern France economic growth. France became a founding member of the European Union, contributing to economic integration and growth. Immigration and diversity. France has faced challenges related to immigration. Thank you for watching this video.